Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma joins me now from Capitol Hill. He's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee and also the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us.
Glad to.
So when the president spoke to Jeff Glor, he told him that he told Vladimir Putin in that summit, in that private one-on-one meeting, he told him to stop interfering with our election. He didn't mention that during the press conference. Do you wish he had said something publicly? Do you think he did enough?
Well, we'll know in the days ahead whether he did enough, and I do wish he'd said something publicly. That was a good moment to be able to push back. He didn't choose to be able to do that. That reminds me much of what President Obama said when he said to President Putin in the past, knock it off, I think was the phrase that he used to be able to stop it. Ultimately, we need to be able to put additional pressure back on Russia, as we already have sanctions. That's the biggest issue on the Internet Research Agency and the oligarchs that funded the social media attack. It's time to also add sanctions to those individuals that were directly attacking our systems.
You know, the White House and the president have suggested on more than one occasion that there are other actors attempting to interfere in our elections. I want to play a little bit of sound for you, and then we'll talk afterwards.
I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there.
We're aware of others that have made attempts, but I can't get into any of that here at this point.
So you're a member of the Intelligence Committee. Are you aware of other actors attempting to meddle in the U.S. elections?
Sure, there are other actors, but they're by far smaller than what the Russians are doing. There are other entities that try to be able to reach out and interfere with our elections at any time. But the level that the Russians have done is far and away greater than anyone else that's tried to do it, in the coordination between their government and between private entities like the Internet Research Agency and other entities that they're pushing out to be able to try to affect our elections dwarf anyone else by comparison. So I think keeping the focus on what the Russians have done is a good thing to be able to do, but also being aware that they are not the only ones that are out there that could try to interfere in our elections.
So who are these other actors, other countries, and is the Justice Department attempting to prosecute them as well?
Well, we're going through investigating. It's not as easy as it looks on a movie to be able to see and identify exactly where everything's coming from. What's called attribution. When you see different cyber attacks, when you see different actors internationally try to be able to put in social media, as the Russians have done, and others to be able to try to put misinformation out, sometimes you can tell exactly where that's coming from. Sometimes it takes months and months of research. So I don't want to get into the who and the what, but the attribution is the biggest issue, and it's a long time. But again, I come back to there's no one doing it like the level the Russians are doing it, not only across all of Europe and Ukraine and other areas, but against the United States.
All right, so in an interview before that summit, you told NPR that the 12 Russians charged with hacking would give the president leverage once he's sitting down with Vladimir Putin. You called it a gift from Mueller. Because, you know, the president could cite clear evidence that Russia interfered in the election. Do you believe the president used that information as leverage when he was with the Russian president?
Yeah, that I don't know, because we don't know what happened in that 2-hour conversation prior to it, and we'll never know on it, and quite frankly shouldn't know the private conversations between any president and any other world leader. I would hope that he would, very similar to what was done by, quite frankly, by Chris Wallace in an interview with President Putin when he had the indictment in his hand and tried to hand it right to President Putin to say, this is what our government says. And of course, Putin wouldn't accept it and asked him to put it on a table. He wouldn't even touch the indictment. The big issue, though, is we do have clear evidence of that. We've had it for a long time. Our intelligence community has seen it for a long time. I've seen it for a long time. This is an issue that I'm glad has come out in the public in the detail that it has. And we need to continue to be able to use that to be able to say to the Russians, you've got to be able to stop, or we'll continue to be able to add sanctions to you.
So I want to ask you a question about a topic that Sarah Sanders was asked yesterday. She wasn't really able to give a good response. The White House has not yet rejected Putin's interest in questioning several Americans, including former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, for alleged crimes. Now, that would be in exchange for the U.S. questioning those 12 Russian officers charged with hacking into the DNC. Is that something you would support?
I would say absolutely that is something we would not entertain. I'm not going to turn over an American citizen to a Russian court or to a Russian investigator to be able to go through all of their life and their personal life. We've seen lots of abuses of that. Obviously, Russia does not have free courts. They don't have a free press. They don't have the same independence that we have in the United States, and I have zero trust for their legal system. So I would absolutely oppose any American being turned over to any Russian for questioning like that.
You know, all of this,
especially a diplomat.
Right. All of this conversation aside, we're heading into a midterm election. You know, Americans are concerned. We know now that the Russians continue to meddle or attempt to meddle in our electoral system. What confidence can you give voters that the midterm elections will be protected? I know you're working on a bill.
Sure. I am working on a bill. It's a bipartisan bill with Amy Klobuchar that we've worked on for months and months and months to be able to go through this process. Had 2 hearings in the Rules Committee recently, and we're working to be able to actually get that to the floor. But I can tell you what's been interesting. There's been a lot of reporting on different statements made by the administration one way or the other about Russia, but their work in the Department of Homeland Security on securing our elections has been stellar. They have worked very hard to be able to get security clearances to every single state in the election officials. That did not happen in the past. Working to be able to actually evaluate the cyber protections for every single state that made any request. Obviously, states run elections, but if a state requested it, the federal government is stepping in to be able to provide them additional assistance to be able to work on making sure their system is secure. We just allotted $380 million to the states to be able to allow them to be able to upgrade their systems, upgrade their security, and to be able to upgrade ultimately their machines. Now, they won't be able to change their election machines by 2018, but they should be able to do it by 2020. But again, I repeat, it's a state's responsibility to be able to run elections. The federal government can partner with them to be able to help, but ultimately it's that state that has to run it.
All right, Senator James Lankford, thanks for giving us a little bit of time.
You bet, glad to help.